This is the Thrive Podcast with Shiloh Missionary Baptist Church. And now, Pastor Fred Jeff Smith.
Hello, welcome to the Thrive Podcast with the Shiloh Missionary Baptist Church. I'm Fred Jeff Smith, pastor of Shiloh, and I'm very happy that you chose to either view on YouTube or listen over iTunes to this, our 39th podcast. And we appreciate your viewership, your listenership. And as we said the last time we were together, we are expecting to expand the podcast. We started this in January of 2018, and it has been very successful, and we're very grateful to God for that. We look to do some expanding of the podcast in the next coming weeks, and we'll be telling you more about it as that time draws near. I'm very happy today to have as my guest a member of the music staff of the Shiloh Missionary Baptist Church, a member of the Shiloh Missionary Baptist Church, one of the best-known musicians in the city of Baton Rouge and in the state of Louisiana, and I'm sure that his name is getting to be better and better known around the country, Mr. Mike Foster of the Mike Foster Project. Thank you so much for coming to share with us today.
Well, thank you for having me here. It is a pleasure.
Tell me about Mike Foster. Tell us who Mike Foster is and how Mike Foster ended up being Mike Foster.
Wow. That's a hard one. Basically, Mike Foster was a kid from Dallas who marched in the band in high school, wanted to be a classical musician. My mom suggested out of the choices of school where scholarships were coming from, my mom's from New Road, so my grandmother was in New Road. She said, hey, Southern is offering you a little something, along with TSU and North Texas State and all that in Grambling. But if you go to Southern, you'd be closer to your grandmother and kind of go to where me and your uncles maybe have gone. So, then I was like, okay. She was like, you've been doing this music thing, why don't you just keep doing it? And so I just kind of followed her advice so I could be closer to my grandmother. Marched in the band, soon found out after my senior recital that to become a tuba player in a symphony, which was my dream at the time, it's not as easy as you think. It's not to mean it's impossible, but it's difficult because there's usually only one tuba player in a symphony.
Okay.
And,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, usually one, no more than two.
Okay.
And those jobs are very hard to come by because the people who have those jobs pretty much stay on them until they don't just retire. Usually have to be an illness or something that takes them away from the job.
Okay.
And once that job comes available, you're looking at could be upwards of 100 people that are applying for that particular symphony job. So the competition is very stiff. Not that I was against competition, but while waiting for one of those jobs to come up, I wanted to continue to do something musically. A lot of my friends were from New Orleans. I decided to pick up a bass and then kind of just learn that culture. And before you know it, I'm playing New Orleans jazz. And just used to do it for some little extra change on the side, doing Mardi Gras. And before you know it, with some, few influential people come and say, oh, you ought to go to do this, you ought to go do that. And we had one thing we did for the NAACP some years ago, and that kind of started back in 1992.
Okay.
And that kind of started everything where people would call for this, and we started meeting all these political people and judges and playing for them. And before you know it, we got a CD offer out of New Orleans, and we were signed with a record label. And before you know it, we traveling around the world, traveling around the country, getting to see places that I've only seen on TV and only dreamed of, places you thought you'd never go, like Russia.
Yes, sir.
Found myself in those places playing Louisiana music.
So tell me, why are there only two tuba players? And I'm still stuck back on there are only two tuba players in an orchestra. You have this huge horn section. Why are there only two tubas? Is there a logic behind that?
I don't think there's a logic. A lot of the music, especially depending on what time period that these symphonies were written, Baroque, Romantic, or whatever, there's not a lot of parts for the low end. It's a lot of string and wind ensembles. A lot of these a lot of this music imitated the keyboard at the time, or the piano at the time, although the clavier, the well-tempered clavier, and all the highest tones were for wind instruments and for strings. And a lot of those movements didn't do a lot of things on the low-end register. Plus, you had the strings. You might find now 5 or 6 upright basses in the symphony. So that low end is pretty much covered by another string instrument, but it is the bass.
Okay.
So when it comes to the brass part of it, not many tubas.
Interesting.
Yes.
Next time I go to the symphony, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna count tubas and see what I come up with.
Yes, you watch it. The Baton Rouge Symphony, I want to say, has maybe 4 of the upright basses, and the principal sousaphone player, who was my sousaphone player and instructor in college. A tuba instructor in college, Frank Chimay, he's been there since he was there for some years when I got to Southern in 1985, and he is still to this day the principal tuba player for the Baton Rouge Symphony, the only one.
Okay.
And that's over 30-something years now.
Yeah.
So it goes to show you how
it
goes to show you how long they're there. And he had been there for some time after the Air Force, and before I even got to Southern. So
that's very interesting. So you are from Dallas, come to Baton Rouge. You have Louisiana roots.
Yes.
And you fall into playing New Orleans jazz. Help me understand, and help those who are listening or viewing understand the distinction between New Orleans jazz versus other types of jazz. Very
good question. New Orleans jazz, as you know, New Orleans is a gumbo pot of all these different cultures, that you have, and so you take what was brought over by the slaves, which is the rhythm, more of the rhythmic stuff, a rhythm called the bambula, the things that when the slaves were able to, when they were able to go out and celebrate in Congo Square, it was mainly the drum rhythms. And one of the main drum rhythms then was a drum rhythm called bambula. And we hear it a lot in the New Orleans second line music. You might hear that beat go boom, 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 boom. And when you hear Oh When the Saints and all this kind of stuff, that underlying bass drum beat is the heartbeat, is the root of the bambula. So you take that music and you take that those African rhythms and you mix it with the music of the West, those harmonic structures, and you put those two together. Then you have that, just like making a gumbo. You have, if these people were singing classical music and their harmonies were based on Western basic music laws, you're dealing with your chord tones, 1, 3, 5, 7. Well, these people a lot of times were classically trained. When I say 1, 3, 5, 7.
Thank you, because you just lost me when you did that.
A chord is basically 2 or more notes.
Okay.
And a scale, which is normally 8 notes here in America. So if I say I'm playing a C scale, it's C, D, F, G, A, B, and then you're back to C again.
Right.
Well, C is the number 1, then B is 2, D is 3, like that. So what they do is they go out and they take the 1, which is C, the 3, which is E, and the 5, which is G.
Okay.
And it's the 1, the 3, and the 5 of that scale, and that makes a chord.
Okay.
That makes a major chord at the time. And then you can alter a few notes, and that's when you get your minor and diminished and augmented. But it's basically numbers. Music is all math. So in those numbers, if a lot of times when I'm playing here at Shiloh and I'm Lawrence is kind of, or Maria, they're giving me cues, they'll hold up a number,
Right.
And it's like, go to the 1, go to the 5. And sometimes it's like, okay, they might hold up, before they start, they might hold up a couple of fingers to tell me 2 flats and let me know what key we're in. So that's how we are able to communicate with numbers or number signals.
Okay.
And so it's basic math. So a lot of times when I'm playing, I might do a run that's based off a pattern of numbers. I might say in my mind 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5, and then to you all it sounds like do 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 do. But I'm going 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1, 3. I'm thinking numbers.
Okay.
And so it's interesting that when you do that, like a lot of times when I teach, I was a band director for over 12 years, and on the middle school and high school level, what I'll, especially now when I go into the classrooms, I'll tell kids when we're learning to make music, I'll say, okay, what is your phone number? Don't tell me, but what I want you to do is take this scale, B flat concert scale or whatever, and put the letters under your phone number. So if my phone, let's say the church's phone number, 343-0640.
Yes.
So if I'm in C, the 3 is E, the 4 is D, so it'll be E, D, E, and then the corresponding numbers. And I'll say, play that and turn it into a melody. Now they've become a composer. They've created a song, and it's easy for them to remember it because it's based off of a number that they already know. John Coltrane, the legendary jazz tenor saxophone player, used to base a lot of his solos around, when he would practice, he would open a phone book and pick a number.
Really?
Yes, and go through, look at the number, and play those corresponding notes to phone numbers.
Okay, so now you got me curious. What do you do with a 0 and what do you do with a 9?
Well, the 0 you don't do anything with. We'll do it the same as if we were doing a 1. And the 9, anytime you get past 8, like 2,
Right.
it will be 9 again, because you're going like, so if 1 is, let's say C is 1.
Right.
And when you get to 8, that's just a higher octave of C.
Right.
So that's like 1 again.
Okay.
So then you go to 9, that's like doing 2 again. And
Okay.
same thing. So some cards will have 9s, and you'll hear Marin and Lawrence do this fancy talk. We're going to play 11s right here. And Jarrell as well. They play these pretty, they call them pretty tones. It's the 9th and the 11th and the 13th. All you're doing is repeating the scale over again, but in a higher octave.
Okay.
And so those higher tones now sit on top of some of the lower tones that you have here. And they spread those things out. So that's where you get your 9s, 10s, and 11s. It's only 2, 3, and 4 played all over again, but on a higher level.
Now, you said something else that caught my ear. You said that in America, there are only 8 notes.
Yeah,
In,
there are only
other places, there are more notes than 8?
In America, there are basically only 8 notes in the scale. There are 12 notes total.
Right.
And it's a series of sharps and or flats. There's a thing called cycle of sharps and flats, and they're only in reverse. So if sharps go this way, the reverse of it would be the flats.
Right.
So it's all mathematical and all kind of gel together that way. But in other countries, say for example, if we're closing out your sermon and everybody goes, naturally we're going to hear, man, that's a cadence called 5-1. Anytime we want to do resolve a chord, 5 always, for the most part, resolve to 1. So if we want to walk down, you might hear Lawrence and them play something like ba-da-da-dum, and they're walking it down from the 5, 4, 3, 1 or 2, 1, whatever it is. So in China, if you go they may go, man, they're not normally hearing the 1.
Okay.
They would naturally do that. We used to have a Asian student at Southern University. She played violin, and she could not hear that resolution going from 5 to 1. It's natural for us, but she kept wanting to hear it go somewhere else. And in Asian scales and other places, they're dealing with with maybe semitones or some half tones and scales that we don't normally play or hear. So it depends on what culture and where you are.
So then music is cultural.
Oh, absolutely.
And not necessarily universal.
It's a universal language. It's cultural, but it's a universal language. So by that I mean, you may hear and want to resolve, and when I say resolve, go to a different place for your last note.
Right.
And that's just what you naturally hear from the time you've grown up and everything you know.
Right.
But universally, you can tell me, instead of going 5 to 1, you'll tell me go 5 to 2. So now universally, I know what you mean. I know exactly where you want me to go because we're able to speak the same language of the music, or you may tell me go from F to B natural instead of F to B flat. So you may not speak English, but if you tell me or show me, say go from F to B flat, I know exactly what to do. But you're not necessarily going to hear the same resolve as I do because of your culture. It's different forms of tension and release. Music is all about creating different forms of tension and release. And I'm gonna give you a good example of something here in our culture.
Okay.
Most African Americans, we hear our beats on 2 and 4, and that's the number. So you might say 1.
It's about upbeat versus downbeat.
Pretty much, but all these that I'm about to give you is gonna be downbeat.
Okay.
So if I say 1, 2, ready, go, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And a lot of us and our kids could dance to that. They'll feel that, and a lot of the snare drum and our music falls on beats 2 and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Tick, 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 tick. And you can feel it, and you can dance it, you can make you want to move. But then think about country music. And some people would ask, why can't other races sometimes hear and feel that beat? Well, they're hearing 1 and 3. So now let me give you 2 and 4 again. 1, 2, ready, and 1, 2, 3, 4. That's what we're hearing. And so they're hearing 1, 2, ready, and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2.
Now I'm
3.
laughing at this because my wife tells me all the time when we're at home and when we're listening to music, she'll say, you're on the wrong beat. She says, you're on the upbeat and not on the downbeat. And so I'm listening to you, and what you're saying is I'm hearing something because I love country music.
I love country music too.
And I must hear something different from what she hears because she laughs at me all the time and says you're on the wrong beat.
Yeah, and you're probably.
And I don't know that I'm on the wrong beat.
You're probably hearing 1 and 3. You know, which is there's nothing wrong with hearing 1 and 3. It's just that.
See, I'm
not common.
I'm deficient in some way that I don't hear the right beat. Okay.
Yep.
And
so that's
Dimitri,
why
you win that one. Go ahead.
and so that's why some people will say, and this is not me making fun of anybody, but my band, we play a lot of weddings. All types of races, Indian, Caucasian, African American, whatever. And it is true that a lot of times at some Caucasian weddings, they want to hear our music, but they're not always able to dance on the beat.
Right.
And you wonder, like, what are they hearing? What are they doing to make a move like that? But they're feeling the 1 and the 3.
Yeah.
So to us, it just looks like they're just way off beat, but they're having a good time. But it just looks like they're way off beat.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I go to a wedding for an African American person, and they're getting it. In my mind, they're on that 2 and 4, and it's just all about what people's feeling.
That's fascinating to me. That you can hear the same song, but hear it completely different ways.
That is right, and a lot of it has to do with culture, what you were exposed to growing up. So if you think about a lot of harmonic music, and when I say harmonic music, I'm speaking like classical, and even in some country, there's it's movement, so it's not a lot of structured 2 and 4 or 1 and 3. If that's what you listen to growing up, and if you listen to country music, as part of that growth, you were being subjected to the 1 and the 3. So then when you finally, after all those years, you get up and then now you listen to this other music that you love, but the emphasis is on the 2 and the 4, it's going to take some getting used to feel it. I'll give you an example. When I used to take my kids to the fair, they had this ride. It was the bike that if you could get from right here to over there, this little short line without falling off the bike, then you get the prize. Well, the trick with the bike was you had to turn the handlebars the opposite way where you wanted the wheel to go. And so you're thinking, okay, I can ride this bike. And then, of course, the guy who was taking your money knew how to do it, and he made it look real easy. But the thing was, we have instincts. So when you get on there and that wheel starts to turn one way, your natural instincts makes you want to turn to correct the wheel. But when you go to your natural instincts to turn to correct the wheel, you're going the wrong way and you're falling off the bike.
I got you.
So those type of instincts happen with our neurons, and it comes from everything from your childhood to on up through adulthood, because you're just, it's like things that are second nature to you. Brushing your teeth. If someone asks you to try to today brush your teeth up and down all the time instead of sideways, you'll be able to do it, but you're concentrating hard, and you're going to try to go and
you have to actually think about it.
You have to actually really think about it and concentrate on it. And so the same thing happens, especially with music, because music is dealing with vibrations, vibrations that are actually felt, and they're processed through the brain. So you want to do things that you naturally have felt when hearing music. You're still hearing harmonies and everything in music that you heard when you were a child, but that beat is something totally different, And so you're off beat when you dance.
What I find fascinating as I'm listening to you, I'm extrapolating from music to politics, to theology, to our views on race and racism, our views on business and entrepreneurship. You ask yourself, how can sane people vote for certain people to be president of the United States, who shall remain nameless? Today only he shall remain nameless. But clearly, when he speaks and we of a certain culture hear one thing, people of a different culture hear
something totally different,
something completely different. And you're saying that difference in culture is so deep that it even affects how we hear music.
Absolutely.
That's fascinating to me. That somebody ought to write a book on that.
Well, and I think that there have been some writings on it, and actually, like some of the stuff that I'm here to talk about today has been some tests done. So I'll give you an example. If I were to ask you to name me your top 3 sciences, or some sciences that you are fascinated by, you'd probably tell me what?
Logic, philosophy, and probably psychology.
Okay, and you're a well-educated man. Now, if I go and ask your average middle school student or high school student, name me some of the sciences, or even your basic undergrad college student, name me some of the sciences. They're going to tell me, biology, physical science,
Right.
Maybe astrology, some other things. But one of the few sciences you're going to hear people name is behavioral science.
Mm-hmm.
But it is the most important. Well, not the most important. I'm not let me say that, but it's so important today with what goes on in our community.
Mm-hmm.
You look at what happens with reality TV. You look at what happens through social media, and these things trend and help to guide our behavior. Mm-hmm. They help us to say, if somebody tags something that says this is trending, then we feel like, okay, this is maybe a behavior that I need to have because it's trending. Everybody's doing it, so this must be the next big thing to do. Or if somebody does something ridiculous and gets rich off of it, you have someone else saying, okay, what if I try that? Maybe I can get rich off of that. But it's all based off of a behavioral science. And a lot of people miss the fact that music, and this is what I call it and what I'm going to be calling it in all 2019, making people aware of, that music is the real true gateway drug that we miss. And the reason I say that music is the real gateway drug, we all know that music has its abilities to make us laugh,
right.
make us cry, make us feel good. And we just know that it does. A lot of times we don't even wonder why and how, but it does. And especially on the feel-good part. When we listen to music that makes us feel good, it releases the chemical in our brain, dopamine. And then when we get this extra dose of dopamine, we're remembering that great feeling that we're getting. Now, if you're getting this great music and you're putting a bad message with it, you're tying together this great feeling with this bad message. And you're saying that this is, you're giving that mixed emotion of this is okay. So you may know that is bad for you, but it feels good. So now dopamine is one of the things that's targeted by designer drugs, which is the reason it's so hard to kick it. You take crack, you take heroin, any of those things. One of the main things that it attaches itself to is the neurons that help control dopamine. So if you wonder why would this person go out in the street or sell their family's property or sell their body, and that's just ludicrous. Why would you even do that? Well, a lot of times that's why I call it addiction. They cannot help it. They cannot. These designer drugs are so strong to where alone they can't help to detach how this drug makes them feel because it creates an explosion of dopamine in the brain. And we see a person that's laid over, look like out of their mind, out of whatever, and they're in another world, on another planet, somewhere they've never been before, with a feeling they want to hurry up and get back to. It takes them away from the real world. And that's a core of addiction. And so when I say music is the gateway drug, how are most people introduced to drugs or introduced to violence or introduced to sex? Nowadays, it is through our mainstream music that we're listening to. A lot of us are listening to, and it's become acceptable on our mainstream radio stations out here that as long as we bleep out the profanity, that it's okay. But the message is still being put forward. And part of what I was coming to talk about today, and I don't mean to get off topic so fast, but part of what I was coming to talk about today is the initiative that I'm going to be pushing, is that we have parents riding around listening to what they think is fine. And I've talked to all these, the program manager and all the personalities. They're all going to be a part of the documentary that we will be doing. But if I'm a child, imagine you are riding in the car and you got your child in the back in the car seat, elementary school level or younger, or middle school level or younger, and you roll up all the windows and you start smoking a cigarette.
Right.
Okay, so naturally that child is going to be subjected to secondhand smoke,
right,
and any kind of ailment that comes from it. And as much as you do it, will determine how sick they will eventually become.
Right.
Well, now imagine the same thing happening with music. So you're in the car with your child and this music is playing, and the songs that you hear are saying the message is just bad. So instead of it saying, if somebody bullies you, go tell the teacher or the principal, it's saying if somebody bullies you, pop a cap in them. One of the songs is, and I brought a list of some lyrics, but don't step on my shoes, and if you step on my shoes, here's what's going to happen to you. Stuff like that. And so now the child is in the back seat, and the parents up there releasing dopamine, and they're dancing and having a good time to it. And so now the child this is acceptable. There's my mom, or there's my dad. They're dancing to this song that is saying some of these lyrics that are just utterly ridiculous. And there's this one song by this artist that says, in a nutshell, he wants to take this girl without her consent. He wants to have unprotected sex with her, and before he do all of this, he's going to pop a pill. And this is a part of a major song that's on in rotation today on one of our radio stations. And so what I do is I get on social media and I get to see these parents who record themselves and record their child in the background singing all the words to these songs. And they think it's funny. And they, hey, look at him, he's jigging. And so you take a child, elementary school, middle school, who are at the most crucial points of their learning, where they are the biggest sponges ever. And a lot of these parents think, okay, my child learns when I drop him off to school, him or her off to school. Well, your child is learning all the time. So now if they're riding with you and this is what's acceptable, this is what they're learning. And so you can tell your child before he leaves to school every day, hey, do your homework, and if somebody gives you trouble, go to an adult and let them know what's going on. That didn't take 5 minutes for you to tell that to that child. But if the music you're listening to on that 20-minute ride to school to drop them off and on that 20, 30-minute ride back home says otherwise, when a child experiences what they feel is trauma, bullying, not being able to fit in, whatever it is, the first thing that they're going to come to is not going to be what it took my mom 2 minutes to say this morning. It's going to be what's been put in their spirit over and over daily for this 20, 30 minutes ride. And the mom is not going to say it every morning. Might say it once a week, might say it once a month. But every morning when you get in that car, you're getting this other message.
So what you're saying is, we will manage what our children see on television. We will manage the movies that we let our children go to. We will manage the video games that we let our children play. But we don't manage the music that they listen to. Am I hearing you correctly?
Absolutely. We're in a different time, and we have to be able to change with, and that's absolutely what you hear me say. We have to be able to change with the time. People don't really listen to CDs anymore.
Right.
And there was a time during legislation that they had to put a sticker on the CD that said parental advisory.
Right.
So that would let the parent know that this message or these lyrics in this thing are, you need to check this out first before letting your child hear this and see it. Well, now everything is pretty much being streamed through headphones, through the car, and then we get it on the radio. So that parental advisory sticker, that warning, is no longer there. And then it's been replaced by what we call the clean version. I had a concert at a school that I won't name on here, but I call it Trap Elementary, for trap music. We got in and we were setting up to play, to give them this concert at elementary school. And so one of the male teachers said, well, I'm gonna put some music on while you guys finish set up and while we bring the students in. I was like, okay. And this guy, he pushed this music on, and the first song was the little dance that all the kids used to know at that time, do the nay-nay, watch me whip, watch me nay-nay, and all the kids knew the dance, and it was cute. The next song, questionable, had some words bleeped out. The following song, very questionable. Now, this guy was playing from his playlist, so I'm uncomfortable in here.
This is a school official.
Oh, yes. This is a teacher, a school official. So I'm uncomfortable. And then finally, they announced that the principal was going to come in and do the welcome for us and everything. Well, the principal comes in dancing to the song. And so now all the little kids are happy to see the principal, like she's dancing with us, our principal. So and she dances down the aisle, comes up on the stage, and then she does this 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 thing, and then they all shut up. and then the music stops. Well, he stops the music, and then she does this 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 thing, and then boom, silence. Then they do a crisscross applesauce, hands in the cookie jar, and so they all fold their legs and get attention. And her philosophy was give them a little bit of what they want, and then we change it over to when it's time for discipline, it's time for discipline. And I kind of get that, but what you're giving them what they want, and you're not looking at the deleterious effects of what you're doing. You know, you're making a compromise, and yes, a lot of these kids are coming from homes where some of the parents might maybe less fortunate homes, you know, and it's obvious that and she talked to me like some of these kids we have to help with uniforms, you know, some of these kids parents may be in jail, whatever the case may be, but we're keeping these kids and we got them on the right track and they're learning, and our school grade has gone up from a D to a C, and all that's fine and well, but the end result is trauma for an adult and trauma for a child can be very different. You know, you go to a middle school and you get bullied in the bathroom by a group of girls. That could be devastating to a young girl, 6th grade, 7th grade, and then now you're laughed at constantly. You can't go and sit with everybody. So if I'm hearing a song on the radio riding home with my mom that says, push me to the edge, all my friends are dead and I just want to kill myself. You know, I want to commit suicide. And this ring, and that hook is ringing over and over about how hurt I am and I just want to kill myself. And then you don't know the effects that can have afterwards. There was a girl right after I stopped teaching in New Roads, very, very smart young lady. Her parents, I think, were both dead. She was living with her grandmother, and she was starting to be cyberbullied at this high school. And it got so bad to the girl just at school one day went under the bleachers out there on the football field and hung herself. You know, committed suicide right there at the school. We think surely it could not have been that bad, but that trauma for that young lady at that time was that bad. And when we talk about the deleterious effects, a lot of it is mental and a lot of it is physical too. It's harmful. Look at what we just had last week with this 13-year-old who shot and killed this 6-year-old. And the thing was, we were imitating a rap video, want to look like rappers. And this is not the first case of that happening at all. So these effects of this music that we're listening to is so dangerous, and people wonder, how can we stop and do this with crime in our community? And this is going on. Our politicians, our city and state leaders, they're focused, and they want to focus more on treatment because it's more profitable. They want to focus more on treatment than prevention. And that's where our problems, that's a lot where our problem lies. So for me and my platform being music, I asked the question, what is it that I can do to help curb, and it's really about saving our children, curbing crime in this community. And I know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that music has a large part to do with it. And if music is my platform, that's what I want to use to be able to do something about it. For somebody else, it may be literacy. We know literacy is something that can help curb this problem. But for me, that's my platform. So I don't know if you had another question before I got into what I really want.
You're doing fine. But I'm kind of fascinated with this conversation because I'm connecting it with other things. A large number of the guests that we have had on this podcast have a background in comedy, stand-up comedians.
Right.
And one of the things that I ask them about is the kind of comedy that they do and where the comedy comes from. Because as I have watched documentaries on world-famous comedians, most of them say that their comedy comes from a place of pain in their own lives, in their own background, and they took it and did something with it and turned it around and made it something positive for them through stand-up comedy work. I'm wondering if we really have a full appreciation for how much everyday things, music, comedy, conversations that we hear significant others have in our lives, how much of an impact that has on the way that we think. And you know, there's a part of us intellectually that says, well, of course it does, but I wonder how much we really understand and appreciate the value or the danger that's involved in that. Growing up, I sat at the table with my parents for dinner. It wasn't a volunteer thing. We had to eat dinner
Right.
together as a family, and I listened to conversation, and we were allowed to participate up to a point in that conversation. And I believe to the depths of my soul that it has helped to shape me, for better or worse, as to who I am. You don't hear about families sitting around the dinner table anymore,
No.
having conversation. You don't hear about families doing anything without a television on or music on or something like that going on. You're having these conversations at the dinner table in for us, what was a nuclear family setting, but even if it's an extended family, people don't do that anymore. So if you're not picking up your information from the dinner table from your parents, where are you picking up the information from? Are you picking it up from the streets? Are you picking it up from the music? Are you picking it up from the television? Are you picking it up from the movies? There is no way to legislate that. There is no law that you can write. There is no policy that the government can develop that can curb that. This has to do with behaviors that take place within individuals.
Right.
And I imagine that that's what it is that you wanted to approach. So talk about that and how you plan to approach that, or what it is that you would like to see done.
Okay, so, and I'm glad you said that. You're absolutely correct. There's really no legislation, or there's no way you can pass legislation that will curb that. So you have to find a way to reach individuals. And I want to be clear that this is not about censorship for me doing this, because I'm an artist myself, and the last thing I want to do is censor anybody, because there are stories that need to be told, no matter how horrifying or horrific or whatever it is, and that's that person's freedom of speech and right to speak. So I don't want any artist to change what they're doing. But I brought something for you, and this is, so the name of the initiative that I'm going to be pushing in 2019 is called MAP, Musically Alert Parents.
Okay.
And so basically, I don't care if it's one by one, if it's a school, if it's a group, it's a community. The basic idea is to make parents become aware of what they're listening to in the presence of their children. So when I'm teaching, I always I have this analogy that I do with children and fruits and vegetables. So for me, and I've taught on all levels for years. So you take your high school students, and I look at them as the fruits and vegetables that you may get at Walmart or the Albertsons or something. You know, they've been kind of selected for you, and you kind of going to, that's what, when you get that, that's what you're going to get. Sometimes I get there and I see some nice bell peppers, you know, full and real good looking, and then other days I might get there and some of these bell peppers are wrinkly, and you better hurry up and catch them and use them tonight, or they're not going to be any good.
Right.
But that's kind of what you're going to get when you go to the grocery store to get your fruit and vegetables. Shelf life, very short. Now you go to the fruit stand or to the farmer's market, and now there you're going to get some vegetables and things that, you know, may not even be quite right, but you take them home, you got a little bit more time. A lot of them have taken a lot more care into it, a lot more organic stuff, not a lot of pesticides been involved. You know, whereas your Walmarts, they come from these big farms where everything's been controlled with pesticides and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
And then you get to the farmer's market, kind of more organic, bigger selection, fresher vegetables. You know, at farmer's market or fruit stand, that's my middle school students. And then my elementary school students are like the garden. These are the seedlings. You get to plant them, you get to nurture them, water, give them sunshine, and have more control over how these fruits and vegetables will turn out. So you have those three levels: the garden, farmer's market, grocery store. So we're not throwing any of these vegetables and fruits away. But I have discovered that if for right now, we put a lot of our concentration into the garden and into the farmer's market, then we can yield a better result down the line. So this is not, of course, something that's going to happen overnight. So this is, I wanted to give this to you. What we plan to do is have the ultimate goal that we would like to see happen, or I would like to see happen, is to, you know how if you go through a school zone, there are these signs that say no handheld device while going through the school zone. You know, they just passed that law a couple of years ago.
Right.
Or you might go in the neighborhood and you see a sign that says deaf kid at play or something like that. Well, in these carpool lines at these elementary and middle school schools, I like to have a sign up there that has this logo on it as a reminder to tell parents, to have parents, oh, let me make sure I'm listening to the right thing here while my child is in the car. So if you pull up the carpool and you see this sign, this is a reminder of, oh, okay, let me wake up. Let me pay attention to what we're listening to, or let me do these alternative things, like have dialogue or listen to different music or have dad jokes or whatever you're going to do at that time, other than just listen to the radio. So this is our thing here.
That's cool.
You notice we have the head. There's no certain ethnicity here. This could be African American, Caucasian, Hispanic, whatever.
Right.
And it's global because this is the reach that we want to have. It's called MAP, but it's like global. We want to have this to be far-reaching, and we have the headphones here with these sounds and everything coming in and out. And so this is a MAP, musically alert parents. And so I want you to have this T-shirt. And what it is if somebody see this and they ask you, well, what is that? What is MAP? Then it opens up that dialogue.
Yeah.
You know, basically we want people to be aware of what their kids are listening to in our presence, or or just make sure we can control it, because we know you can't control everything, especially not when you get to high school and the kids are driving and their friends have already exposed them to certain other things. You know? But a lot of times on those crucial levels, elementary school and middle school, you can kind of, while you still got them there, control what they're listening to. So this is yours. Your wife,
Thank you.
Your wife told me that you like to work out in these shirts when people give them to you.
I walk every morning. This is perfect. I love it. I want y'all to see that. That is perfect. Thank you very, very much.
You're welcome. So
I really appreciate that.
So when you think about the power and the effects of music, I teach the kids all the time. I'll say, well, how many of y'all play video games? All of them raise their hand. Right. How many of y'all go to the movies? Well, raise a hand. How many of you have your favorite show that you watch on TV at home? They all raise their hand. I said, well, did you ever stop to realize that in every one of those things there's music playing? Every last one of them. Your video game comes on with some music. Right. That movie is going to come on and go off, and in between have music.
Right.
Television show, same thing. So I create this awareness so you'll know that music is constantly all around. You go in the grocery store or certain stores to shop, there's certain music playing to make you feel a certain way. Yeah. And you want to know, okay, when did all this start? How long has this been going on? Well, it's been going on forever. You think about Plato. Plato said that humans that listen to music during their growing up years will balance out their souls as adults. And even Aristotle said that he agreed, saying people that listen to the wrong kind of music will become the wrong kind of person. People that listen to the right kind of music will become the right kind of person. And even if you go to Proverbs 23:7, and it says, as a man thinketh, in his heart, so is he. If this is what's put in your spirit and in your heart, and that's what you're going to think, and that's what you're going to do. Right. So every parent, every guardian should take this and look at and see how serious this is. When you get the news and you say, I can't believe my child would say or would do that, is because you're not so much in tune to what it is that they're listening to. Right. If you're on your cell phone and you drive and you're going to school and you just have that radio on, that's being absorbed. And I've seen way too much of it on social media. Not only where they're not paying attention, but they're getting the kids involved in it. Curse words and all. Right. And you think it's funny and it's cute, and it's not. You are damaging your child, and hopefully not setting them up for failure to where they're going to be incarcerated or become in the system because of certain beliefs that happen because your route to school and to pick them up.
It reminds me of that commercial that used to run about drugs, where a father bursts into his son's room.
That's right.
And says, where did you learn this? How did you get a hold of this? And the kid finally says, I learned it from you.
Learned about watching you.
Yeah. And so what you're saying is, we are shaping the way our children think, not even knowing that we're shaping the way our children think through the music that we listen to and that we expose them to.
Nail on the head.
I appreciate the shirt very much, and I'm going to wear it. Trust me. Are you all doing a website? Are you doing some kind of informational?
What we have going on, we have meetings that are going to be set up with the school board. I've already talked to the mayor's people about. We're pulling everything together now. The whole past year has been done with a lot of research, putting a lot of research, and then hopefully we will get the governor's wife involved by early next year, because she's a old ex-elementary school music teacher. So I think this will definitely be something that will get her attention, and that's what we want to. We want to try to bring this down from the highest level and to come down. And of course, everybody on the school board who we've talked to are all on board. We're like, yeah, this is really something that kind of needs to be done. And here's what we already know: if you play a musical instrument, or if you're exposed to music at an early age, number of studies have been done. It helps with cognitive thinking. It helps you with standardized tests. It helps you to work out puzzles and mazes, all that, as opposed to a child who has not been exposed to that thing. And people will tell you that stuff all the time. But what you do not hear is, what about the other side? What if they're not exposed to this music? Then what are those effects? Well, you don't hear it, because there are some powers that want you to ignore that side, because it's a multi-billion-dollar industry for them. They don't want you to know about that. There was a study done by a lady named Dr. Arlene Taylor, and she and some scientists did this study where they took, just like they do a lot of things, they took mice. They took 36 mice and separated them into 3 groups, Group A, B, and C. And Group A was a control group. They didn't expose them to any music at all. Group B, they exposed them to harmonic music. Excuse me. So that's like a symphony, anything that's dealing with harmonies and mathematical things, where you're putting this music together based off math and numbers and everything that kind of locks itself in harmonically. Group B was exposed to harmonic music, and Group C was exposed to rock and roll. And so what they did was they took these groups and they played the same decibel level for Group B and C, harmonic music and the rock and roll, for 2 months. And then they gave them a 3-week rest. And then they trained these mice to go through this maze. They trained them to run this maze in a certain amount of time. And so they took the mice from each group, and they took 4 out of each group and did a test on the brain cells to test the neurons. The neurons of Group A and B were normal. The neurons of Group C that listened to the rock and roll, those neurons have become tangled, almost like that of the neurons you would see in somebody that has Parkinson's. So then they put the mice back in the maze. Group A was able to make it through the maze the same as they were trained to before, no music. Group B was able to make it through the maze the same, and some of them a little bit faster, that had been exposed to the harmonic music. Group C, not only were they not able to make it through the maze, they became very aggressive, very violent, and even to the point of cannibalism, where they were eating each other, and showed signs of dementia and Parkinson's. Same thing, after being exposed to this music for 2 months. So now you think about these different types of music that these mice, if they did this experiment on mice, you best believe at some point it went to be an experiment on another level, on humans. So now, if a particular music can make these mice become aggressive and agitated and all this kind of stuff, think about how a lot of our kids get labeled. AD, HD, HD, AD, all the hyperactive disorder, and everything that's happened that makes you want to want to put them on medication. Now, I'm not saying that all kids who have ADHD and all that kind of stuff, it's because of the music, but what I can tell you is that being exposed to that music is not helping you at all. If anything, it's making that situation that you have even worse. And when you look at these neighborhoods and these the kids, it's majority, I don't know the percentage, but it's majority African American kids. And so how many times have you gone there and the teacher said, well, he's hyper, won't sit down, keeps doing this, he's defiant, he's talking back, he's using profanity. And the parent goes, well, we're not teaching him that. We ain't teach him that at home. Right. We ain't raise him that way. Right. No, you didn't sitting down eating dinner. Maybe you curse at home, use profanity, whatever, but if you get in the car and the words are bleeped out, but the sound is still there. Right. That child know what that sound is. That child know what that word is. Yeah, he can fill in the blank easily. Easily fill in the blank. And then you take some of our mega superstars, Beyonce, your Lil Waynes, and all these people that they listen to, and you play some of the lyrics from their songs, and here are kids that, here are artists that their parents love. And the parents in the front seat dancing, or the parents in the house dancing and getting the kid to dance along with them. Mm-hmm. And this kid is going, hey, this person here who takes care of me every day that I look up to and feeds me and everything, they love this. This is okay. Right. This is all right. Right. And so what am I going to do? This is what I'm going to do. And some of our social media research, you look at we already talked about how it makes these people want to be rappers or live this life of gangsters and thugs because of the music. And a lot of these rappers or hip-hop artists, that's not even their life. Yeah. They're using these stories from somebody else out the newspaper, but they're rapping about it's marketable. Exactly what they're doing. And so on that end, you have the violence part or the drug part of it. Right. And for our young girls, our young ladies, a lot of the music is designed for you to do the dance called twerking to. And if you're out there twerking and you're to see who can shake their rear the best and the hardest, while men stand to the side. Those men are not standing to the side watching you gyrate, thinking about what's your ACT score. They're thinking of something else that could be going on here. Sure. And then you wonder why we have this low self-esteem or why we have rape the way it is. One of the things when we were doing research, there was what they call them bounce artists out of New Orleans, that female rapper gave a contest to her song, $20,000 to the young lady who could twerk the best off of my song. Well, it's a marketing scheme. Right. Now all as many people, she's going to go viral because all these people are going to be dancing to a song. And everybody's trying to win the $20,000. Right. We're poor, we're less fortunate, whatever. I can sure use $20,000. And one of the things we came across, this young lady had her toddler in the room. Baby couldn't have been more than 2, 3, walk around in diapers. And she had on what's all-in-one suit. I think they call them cat suits. And her video starts off and she's trying to, win the money. Mm-hmm. And she's all over in her living room, all over the sofa and everything. And then here comes the baby into the screen. And she's going so hard, she hits the baby and knocks the baby off to the side. Now, did this parent pick up her child and say, hey, are you okay, baby? Here, mama got you, or whatever? Parent picked that baby up, pushed it to the side, and went back to doing what? Trying to get that $20,000, working as hard as she could. Mm-hmm. And that's the mindset of what this music and the life that it brings does to a lot of our younger adults. If you're programmed through this through high school, and then you do become a young adult, this is all you kind of know. And my job has always been, at least let me try to give balance. Let me introduce you to classical music. Let me go and play some blues over here. Let me go and play some jazz. Because if all you're listening to every day is mainstream hip hop, and nothing against hip hop artists, that's your lane, that's what you do. Right. Go ahead and do it, and that's how you make your money. Right. But ultimately, I'm going to try to get in touch with some of our well-known local hip-hop artists because I want them to have this shirt and take a picture. And I want the message to be, my music is for you, not for your 7-year-old child. Yeah. And that's the message we're going to try to get when we go for some of our national hip-hop artists.
Doesn't that work against cross purposes? Or doesn't that work at cross purposes, I guess is the way I should say that. Because these artists want to make as much money as they possibly can. And whoever they can get to listen to and purchase their music, that's what they're most interested in. So, in effect, you're asking them to work against their own personal interests by asking them to adopt this practice.
And it's not so much, it's not as simple as that. I am asking them to take on this initiative. Right. But what I'm asking you to do is say, the parents is the parent is the one that's buying this music
Right.
that the 7-year-old is listening to. Now I'm not talking about 13 or 14 and above, whatever high school is. The message is, we want you, when you're around any child in elementary school or middle school, just be aware of listening to this song around them. We've had some rappers to come out and say they disagree with, they're shocked at and not in agreement with kids playing with guns because of their songs. If somebody got shot because they're trying to be like them,
Right.
some of them have come out and said, you know what, we making this up. These kids are going out here and doing this for real, and we're making this up, and this is why I stopped doing this particular type of rap.
Right.
I don't know those artists' names right now, but there are some documentaries
Right.
where they've come out and say, you know what, I didn't do this for people to be getting killed.
Well, to me, that's like blaming an actor. That's like blaming Al Pacino because somebody goes out and
Wants to be
shoots
Scarface and shoot somebody.
Yeah,
And you cannot blame Al Pacino, but watch this. Before you were able to go in and see Al Pacino, they had what's called PG-13 or rated R,
Right.
which means we don't want Al Pacino to not do Scarface. That was a real life thing that happened, and people need to know that story and how that stuff happened. It's in some areas it's even fascinating how they got to where they were to the level the way they did it. But a parent who says, you know what, I'm going to go in here and see Scarface.
Right.
I'm going to go take my 6-year-old child, and we're going to sit down and watch Scarface. That's the main thing.
Yeah. How do you stop irresponsible parenting? That because what you're describing is irresponsible parenting.
Right.
A parent who lets a 6-year-old sit down and watch Scarface
Is an irresponsible
or
parent.
my favorite, The Godfather, parts 1, 2, and 3. How does a parent let a 6-year-old or an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old watch that kind of entertainment?
Right, and how do you stop it?
Yeah.
I'm glad you asked. That's why we're going, if it takes one person at a time, because a lot of times some of them don't know the effects. It's almost if you take a parent, I know a parent recently who just stopped smoking and started the real journey to stop smoking. Now they're doing this new thing, vape, in secret, but before that, they were smoking around the kid all the time until they went to the doctor, and then they started to see these effects, and this is what happens, here's the health thing, and here's what can happen to people who get not only second but third hand smoke. In other words, you go outside and you hide and you smoke it, and then you come back in, well, those carcinogens are in your clothes. So when you come back home, you take that shirt off, you're throwing those carcinogens in the air.
Right.
Ultimately, so that particular parent said, you know what, my health and my child's health is I didn't know that. It becomes, whoa, I didn't know that.
Right.
So now I'm going to do better. And so it's about community coming together, churches coming together,
Right.
and people being unified, our politicians coming together, just being unified on the message of, here are the effects when children who are, at a certain age, they can process it for themselves. But at 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, they're not able to process what's going on or what's being heard in those songs. They're not. They don't know how to do it. So it's up to creating responsible parents, and the only way to make responsible parents is to educate those parents. You go to, I'm hopefully in the fall, we're at the PTA meetings, just giving out a brief, here's what happens when you bring your child to school listening to this artist and this song. And so naturally the parents are going to say, well, what am I supposed to do then? Since that's bad, then what am I supposed to do? Well, then it becomes, and all you want to do is open that dialogue. All you want them to do is say, well, okay, well, what do you suggest? What do you think I need to do?
Right.
That's all you need to do is open that dialogue. Then we can start to see, then becomes behavior modification 101. Replace a negative behavior with a positive behavior. Okay, here are some stations that play music that you'll like and your child will like.
Like Disney Channel on satellite radio.
Like Disney Channel.
Plays music, but plays a certain
they
type
have
of
this.
music.
Some of them have these things called Kids Bop, which all of it, like I've worked with a lot of the personalities at Cumulus, and we're putting a team together to where we can filter through songs to say, here's an appropriate list of songs. And we plan to do a podcast where parents could tune in on their way to work with songs that have been specially selected, and it could be your favorite rapper. But in this particular song, he's not talking about sex, drugs, and violence.
Right.
And so now here you have this music that you can dance and move to, and your child has something that's safe for them to listen to.
Right.
The main thing, the great thing would be, is to teach parents to have that dialogue just have open dialogue with their kids.
Right.
The family is being destroyed. And it has a lot to do with a lot of things. Like you said, no one is at the dinner table anymore, all those things. So you have to now find time to have dialogue.
Right.
Well, while you got them trapped in the car and they can't jump out, why not find these creative ways to have encouraging things to say before they walk into the school, as opposed to they going into school bouncing and jigging. You know, find ways to encourage them and say these positive things. On the way, my kids' mother will have them recite the Psalms, the 23rd, you know, and just recite Bible verses. My son, he knows them. All you got to do is say the first word, and he's going to recite the rest of the passage, because from elementary school on his way to school, that's what was being done. So that's instilled in him. Some people do the corny dad jokes or the riddles or the knock-knock. Before you know it, you're at school. You just need something to replace it.
Right.
You know, and it'll be great. Then once you pick them up, how was your day? What happened in your day?
Yeah.
They could have had a moment of trauma some kind of way that they want to talk about.
Right.
But if they get in and it's boom, 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 and then, okay, now the dopamine kicks in. It's
And
like,
then
okay.
you're telling them be quiet because my song is
Be
on.
quiet. I'm going to tell you one of the most embarrassing moments I had this past spring. I work with Arts Council and Big Buddy as a artist and resident teacher. And I was teaching at a school out here off of Gardia, and mixed school, white and black. And on the way out, it's an after-school program. So on the way out, I'm coming down with my little instruments, and there's and this is fourth grade, fourth grade. Little white girl comes out, and she has every class she's been excited about music, and so she tells her mom, she said, "Mom, that's the music teacher." And her mom goes, "Oh, you're the music teacher." She's been coming home doing this music stuff, and we're just happy. And so now we have this little kind of happy praise music thing going on, you know, here with the parent and student. I'm here, and we're walking out to the parking lot, and I'm happy because this child's going home telling mom how much she loves music. That means I'm doing my job, so I'm feeling good. And before I can go to open the door for us to walk outside, there's a carpool line, and there's a black Tahoe right here in the front, and you could hear the music. He has his door closed and the windows up, but you can hear and feel the music before I open the door. So me and the parent and I, we're still talking. And by the time I open the door for us to go outside, we can't even hear each other. So we just stopped talking because now we have to walk past this vehicle to get to the parking lot. And I'm looking at the expression on her face, and I see the little girl kind of doing this. And I'm looking at this guy who's an African-American male in this car, just playing this music with no regard for anybody else.
Right.
With the uncut version.
I hear you.
So I hear all the N words, all the F words, all these things are right here in this carpool. And the first thing that was laid on my heart was, what child has to get in this vehicle and go home?
Right.
Because he's not about to turn it down.
Right.
And they're going to ride wherever they got to go with this child listening to this. That is the day I decided to take this project off of the back burner, because it's been a baby of mine for the past 2-3 years. And I've always said, okay, I'm going to get to it, I'm going to get to it, I'm going to get to it. Let's do some more research. But that day, leaving that school this past spring, I decided this is ridiculous, because now I'm embarrassed because this parent and I can't even talk anymore. This little girl is holding her ears. And now, more importantly, there's a child who just got through learning in this school that has to get in this vehicle. How dare you?
Right. And it reinforces stereotypes
that
people already have.
That they already have.
And people can get mad if they want to, talking about, well, I'm an individual and you shouldn't judge me by. But the truth of the matter is,
I'm not a role model, all that.
Perception is reality in the minds and in the hearts of most of these people that we're dealing with and talking about. You mentioned church music. I want to get it back to church, because you do play, not just for us here at Shiloh, but you play at other churches as well. What's your opinion of church music today, 21st century church music?
Oh, that's a great question. I have my opinion varies depending on where I am. But the overall umbrella is, I love the music, most of the music that we play in church today, especially the music that is centered around, and people are going to talk to me about but see songs kind of like Cooling Water and all that kind of stuff. You know, I'm not a big fan. To me, I love more praise and worship songs that are going to touch your heart, songs that'll make a tear come to your eye. Some months ago, which we haven't finished yet because I haven't been back in the studio, I wrote a song that I brought here, and I let you listen to it on my phone. That is, it's complete in its writing form, but as far as the musicians and getting together recorded, we have not done that part yet. But I prefer more praise and worship music. I do feel that the church music and its actual message is extremely important to the overall part of why we come to church. I oftentimes when I'm a low-key guy. I'm background. My instruments, I play tuba, I play bass, electric bass here. That's a foundation instrument. You know, I'm not a soloist. I'm not a person that needs to be out in front. I prefer to be a foundation instrument in the background. But sometimes when I get to feeling it, you know, I want to hop out of my seat, but I'll a lot of times try to restrain myself because the attention needs to be on the message and not on the soloist or the person playing the music. And I found, because I know a lot of church musicians, I found that culture is filled with a lot of diva type musicians. They're great musicians, but it's a lot about, hey, look at me, I'm over here, and hey, that's my song, that's my song that I sing. And when they get up to sing it, a lot of times you can tell. It's not hard to see it. I mean, it's not hard to see what's going on. It's more of a showmanship, a performance, than it is of let God use me to give this message to you. Before I play, and I try to do it every time, I ask God to let me decrease and let you increase in me, so that what my fingers do touch on this bass, touch somebody out in the audience. And then I'm able to leave it there, and I'm able to play with a certain amount of confidence because of that. But when you have the musicians who couldn't happen if it wasn't for me, or wouldn't be the same, you know, it wasn't for me, that takes away from, in our musical culture here, as far as gospel music goes, we have a lot of that goes on, and if you don't have the right niche and the right group of musicians, a lot can be lost, and it becomes a show. I would say that's my only downfall. And I have another thing where I have a problem with these pastors who allow their musicians to, once the music's done, just let them leave. You know, leave and go outside and go smoke your cigarette or whatever you're going to go out there and smoke and do. And then when you hear me hoop and holler, then you can come back in and now let me pay you. I have a problem with that because if you're not sitting there getting the message, you know what I mean, and being in tune to the message, the music that you're playing, a lot of times it's going to be for naught. You know, it's not going to reach what you needed to reach. So if, you know, and like I said, you have one of the best staffs musically here that has ever been assembled. So when you finish preaching and those musicians come up with the songs that seem like they were tailored to your message, that extends the message, that's an amazing talent to me, to be able to do that. That is an amazing talent. And my job at that point is like, okay, how can I play, I don't want people to say, hey, did you hear the bass? But how can I add this bass to this song they just selected to go with that message, to send these people home with this feeling of encouragement and, okay, I feel better going into this week. I can't wait to get back and just, you know, about that experience. Not so much as a 3, 2, 1 action. Not that kind of experience, but this whole feeling that I've experienced here. And even when it moves you, you might get up and something's get up and you come on and you tag in on a song that we're ending, but you were feeling it. You know what I mean? And you start singing it, and now you've sent the congregation up to another level. That's what the music is supposed to do. That's it in its truest form.
I think that there are certain songs, especially over the last 20 years, maybe 25, I'm getting old, somewhere along the way, music industry discovered that they could make money on gospel music. And gospel and contemporary Christian and spiritual music, whatever term they want to use for it, has become an industry. And there's a lot industry that I hear on the radio that I just don't feel is appropriate for a Sunday morning worship experience. Not to say that it's bad music. It's not my kind of music. And I would not want to hear it on a Sunday morning in Shiloh. You mentioned Cooling Waters. Now, it's quartet singing.
Right.
And when it's in the car, I like to try to harmonize with the with the quartet. But I don't want to hear Cooling Waters on a Sunday morning because Cooling Waters got nothing to do with Jesus.
Right.
Don't say a thing
Nothing.
about Jesus. So as a musician, as a composer, as someone who spends a lot of his time and energy in music, what's your sense of where people are with regard to gospel music that's for church versus gospel music that I personally don't think is
meant
for
just
church?
to entertain.
Yeah.
I think the first thing I think is that it really is a dying art. There are not enough people that are writing songs that are message based. And a lot of times let's take Brother Jarrell, for instance, a lot of songs that he arranged and some of those things that he do, they're message based to me. His music that I've been able to listen to, and I like it. But like you said, there's this part of the industry where people are going into the studio to try to make a gospel hit.
Right.
And I really feel like you are missing the mark. And it's almost like, let me give you an example. I go into the schools, when I was in high school, I used to think I wanted to go to the military because my brother went to the military. I wanted to go to the Air Force. And the Marine band came to my high school. And the band director, and they were like, okay, we're going to listen to the Marine band. I was like, man, please. Nobody want to hear that old horn music, kind of stuff. We were playing back in my high school, Purple Rain and all that stuff with Michael Jackson and Prince were. And that's the stuff we played at our halftime shows. That stuff these Marine people come to play won't have no parts of that.
Yeah.
And so I reluctantly went to the auditorium and we sat down. And from the first note out the gate, I was floored. And I knew I want to be a part of something like this. I want to do music past high school because of that experience. So that let me know there that kids and people in general need to have an experience that's going to make them appreciate that. Now, the second part of that is, after you've done this and you get into it, somebody has to be that person that passes the torch of what is the genuine core of what it is you're doing, your music. For example, I think it was amazing for me during the time, and not say it was a pleasant thing to happen, but for you to take over after your dad. That was like legacy being passed down, and you just had this feeling of that continued legacy in your own way. But this is a person who grew up in the music, grew up in this ministry, and this torch has been passed, and this is the right kind of torch to be passed. Like you were talking about, I think one day, children who their parents, and I don't know when this was, but sometimes their parents have a business going, then the kids go away and don't have anything to do with the business at the parents. So so a lot of these things become lost. And so that's what's happening to me in gospel music, spiritual music. Everybody wants that new, we got this contemporary gospel, whatever. A lot of it sounds good, but here's this guy, he sounds like a rock and roll singer, but not saying Jesus right here. And to me, it has to do more than sound good. It has to have a message that really can relate to. When I wrote the song, the praise and worship song that I hope to hurry up and get out, it was after the flood. And it was doing a low time for me. I didn't realize, I have a construction company, so I do construction that's my day job when I'm not playing music. And I remember after the flood, I got caught up and I'm fixing all these other people's homes. And I come home and do a little bit on mine because I got flooded. And, then it was like, okay, as long as we have a kitchen and a bathroom going, we'll sleep on these air mattresses. Then after so long, it's like, man, a year's passed, man, and I got my kids on air mattresses. Now I need to touch up their rooms and get their rooms in order and all. And but I'm at everybody else's houses fixing and doing and making everything pretty. And then one day, not long ago, it dawned on me, people have a warped sense of, I think most people have a warped sense of what depression can look like. They think it's somebody walking around frowning and woe is me. But I was in a state of coming home to a house that was incomplete. Every day. A place where you're supposed to be able to come and relax and kick your feet up and take the weight off of the day.
Right.
And it was just in disarray.
Yeah.
So my life was in disarray, and all this stuff was just going on. And in the day, you know, people pulling you this way, left. They don't care about your home. They want their home fixed. They want this done, and everybody wants it done yesterday.
Yeah.
And so you're doing this, and you're trying to be professional and be out there for these people doing this, and then you know your kids that need you, and any other person that needs you, and now you're trying to make sure you give them the time that you need. But then you go and you're in this form of disarray.
Right.
I wrote that song during that time about the flood, and it taught me. And the main core of that song is be thankful. Instead of getting down on your knees and asking for increase and asking for all the things that you're asking for,
right.
Look around at what you have,
right.
Be thankful, and realize that God made you a steward over certain things, and he's not going to give you no more until you show him that you're a good steward over what he gave you. You know, so take care of that and just be thankful, and then try to be mindful of what he's given you. And then when it's time, you know, the story of the parables, and then he'll put you over more when you show him that you're ready for more.
Yeah.
And so and I said that whole story to say that's what that one song came out of. Now, I've never written another God, that's my first and only ever gospel. A praise, to me, is praise and worship song. And I'm not trying to make money off of it. It's a message that I want people to hear. And because of what we're going through with our climate control and everything, and when it says in the song, flood waters may rise, but it lets you also know that it's going to be okay once you know who's in control.
Right.
And so the song, to me, had a message that you can relate to, tangible, something that's tangible, and then related to you strengthening your faith. So to me, the song will have that powerful message.
Yeah.
Somebody's going, there's a young lady who's in the studio who asked my band to open up for her CD release. And her whole thing was like, we're in the studio. I got this producer he produced Tamala Man, and listen to what he playing right here.
They love to name drop, and that just drives me up on the wall.
They sent me the video, Pastor Smith, and I'm like, yes, that sound. He's playing some amazing licks. But what does that have to do with the real purpose of you supposed to be making this music? Music is powerful. Music is powerful than most people even give it credit to. We can go back throughout history, and you'll know that this is what it does. So you're more concerned with being able to put this guy's name on here as a producer, being able to say you had this guy to play, and it's all about. And then when we go press, you know, now you're only thinking about selling CDs, or selling streams rather. Now that's all it was about. So I couldn't be a part of it. You know, I will come in my band. We'll play the opening, but I can't get out and promote this with a good conscience. Sure. You know, as far as saying, hey, everybody, you better run and go pick it up. You better run and go pick it up. You know, part of my job, how I feed my family is through my music. Right. That's one of the main ways I feed my family. Right. And oftentimes I'm a hired musician. You know, but in the big scheme of things, I can't promote something that I'm not feeling it like that. You know, especially when I know the root behind it. You want to support people, but what am I supporting? Sure.
You're going to receive an award very shortly from the Lynx. Talk about that for a second.
That's just super incredible to me. Quick story, when I was in high school, my parents, they didn't know how serious I was in music. Never came to a concert, not because they didn't want to. They just always worked 2 and 3 jobs. But all they knew was that boy was in that band. And whenever I tried to practice at home, the tuba, my mom made me go to the alley. In Dallas, we have alleys. And she tells that story better than anybody. Too much noise. Hey, you have to stop, but to the alley with it. And I'd go in the alley and practice the tuba. But finally, at the end of my senior year, there was a band banquet. And I told them, you know, the parents were coming to this thing, and they made arrangements to come to the band banquet. And I received the John Philip Sousa Award and maybe 4 or 5 other trophies of, you know, best this and section leader and all those things that come with it. And my parents were looking like, is this the right person? Y'all giving these awards to the right person? They didn't know
how talented you were. How talented you were.
They didn't know the level of my talents. But I remember that feeling of, I want to always be able to get awards, you know, that feeling of accomplishment from high school. So I used to always set out on things to do. It was the cause was that, but it's for the wrong reasons a lot of times. I wanted to get the award. And so I strive my best and try to outdo everybody so I can get the award. When it came also to high school, I tried everything I could to let her. You know, I played football, but I was JV and second string my whole life.
Okay.
Never started. So
At least you made the team.
Yeah, made the team, right. But I tried everything, bowling team, chess team, and eventually got a Letterman's jacket in music.
Okay.
You know, but now and throughout, throughout my career, I received certain awards and people recognize me for, what I've been doing. But this particular award means a lot because it says role model. Mm-hmm. And it's from an organization that has been around a very long time, and it's the people who make up this organization for society purposes are the movers and shakers, mm-hmm. Supposedly, and for them to select you mm-hmm. Says that you're pretty good at what it is you're trying to do, and you are a role model in this community, and that for me means the world. I have my mom coming from Dallas. I'm going to have all my kids there because I want them to see, my dad is trying to be relevant, trying to be positive, and he is actually doing something positive in the community and going to be doing it, until I no longer have breath, because I've learned. People say, oh, what's the meaning of life? What's the purpose in life? And here's what I've come up with. And it's a quote that I saw, but I agree with it. A lot of times the meaning of it is or the purpose is to find your gift, and the meaning is to give it away. Or maybe I have that mixed up, whatever. But the whole thing is once you find what the gift that God has given you, mm-hmm. then you stay in close prayer with Him and let Him use that gift to help others mm-hmm. or to benefit others. You didn't get the gift for you to keep at home and keep in your pocket. Mm-hmm. You're supposed to find out how can you use it that can help others. If He blessed you with it, how can you use it to move forward and let it be of benefit or help to somebody else? Sure. So, I don't go sit at home and play my instruments behind closed doors and then come out here and, anytime I go into school and a kid comes up to me, or anytime I'm teaching music and they get it, and they got it, and it's not always meant for them to go and be a music teacher or to go and be a performing artist. Mm-hmm. It's about something that gives them something else other than what they're used to. For example, for my son, he was bullied in elementary school, and we were trying to get him into music and all this kind of stuff, and it was just, the band director put him out because he said he was using the bow like a sword. One strike and put him out. Mm-hmm. But he had become labeled. And we found out later. Well, when he got to middle school and actually became a part of a band, I had blocked it out of my mind, I guess. It made me realize I was bullied in high school. I can tell you, not just high school, all my school time. I've been called every black joke that you can probably ever think of. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And I was bullied to the point of, in high school, I had to learn to turn it around and make it a laughter thing. Even today, somebody might, instead of saying Black Friday, say Mike Friday. Mm-hmm. All those things that I did that I had to learn to, by being in a band, learn to get that thick skin and have people that I can relate to that were on the same page with me, and had a group of people I could belong to, because everyone is not going to be a star athlete. Mm-hmm. Everyone is not going to be a scholar. Mm-hmm. And so when my son got into that band in middle school, and he had some people, to relate to, and then he moved on over and he got into high school and gained another group of friends, and then now here's friends of the band, and there's band boosters, and there's dancers, mm-hmm. and there's the cheer groups and all kind of stuff. And now he's part of a bigger thing, mm-hmm. and he felt a sense of belonging, mm-hmm. and it helped him to not want to get in trouble or anything. And if you got in trouble, if your grades wasn't right, you couldn't be in the band. Right. So a lot of those things kept him focused, and then now it ultimately led to him going to Southern University. Right. And then being in those communities, now your community is wider and meeting people from all over, and then it gained him the attention to get the internship that he did in California, which opened up some other doors. I traced that all the way back to getting in that band in middle school, because we started in music early, but you were a isolated musician. You didn't really have the friends in music. The band director or the music teacher made it so uncomfortable you wanted to quit. Mm-hmm. But we weren't able to encourage him to stick with it. And I'm very proud of where he is today because sticking with it. So now I go back to kids who go and hear me for the first time when I go into these elementary schools, right. And I see the looks on their faces, and I'm going, okay, you're going to hear something else other than drop it like it's hot, mm-hmm. and everything if I can help it. Mm-hmm. And that way, when you hear that, you might be subjected to it and can't do anything about it, but you're going to also have that curiosity of what's that other kind of music. or if I hear it, or if I get a chance to it. And the reason I give the keyboards away to the schools, I want the kids to, when they pass by a piano, touch the keys. Let's hear these sounds, whatever. Because it's going to spark a whole nother curiosity. Sure. And something about harmonies and your vibrations and your brain functions open up a whole nother part of learning and curiosity, where it just makes you want to, okay, now you're able to have calmness. Now you open up the areas of cognitive thinking and motor skills. Being able to, get into music and think about doing puzzles and mazes. Most musicians who go into the military, what they're in, not just being in a military band, what job they give them, or what jobs they test high on? Code breaking codes.
Because it's math.
Because it's math, and it's dealing with these different levels of frequencies and sometimes all kinds of stuff. Most musicians who get into the military and they do the general test to see where you're going to go has something to do with code and code breaking and sitting down and listening to frequencies, those type of jobs.
Interesting. And you said something that pricked my ear, and then we're going to close up. You talked about people joking, making you the brunt of their jokes based upon your skin color. I'm assuming that these are African American people who are making these jokes.
It was always African American people, but as I got into adulthood, when I started working construction, then and here in Louisiana, back in the early 90s, like 90, it was white people that were on a construction site. My first construction job was for a company. We were building roads. So I was a laborer. That means I walked with a bucket picking up roots out the ground after the plow would go. Right. But I had already messed up in school and had already had a child, and I needed to put food on the table.
Sure.
And these guys who were operators, as they called them, who used to set up here on the backhoes and on the tractors, it was only me and another guy with only 2 black guys, and then there was about 5 or 6 other white guys. And they called you these names, and they told you these racial jokes, and your foreman was white. And back then, that was not a whole culture of whistleblower and going up to the next level to talk about racism.
Right.
But I mean, it exists, but it's almost like it was, this is sad to say, but it's almost like it was acceptable back then.
The part that I wanted to focus in on, because I shouldn't be saying this, but I halfway expect that from white folks. But for African Americans to do that to other African Americans, we're sitting across the table from each other. I don't think it's hard for anybody to watch to see that one of us is dark skinned and one of us is light skinned. And this has been a source of division and resentment within our, forget about outside our community. This has been within our community for generations. And it struck me as you were talking that this is still taking place, and it's very hurtful. And people don't realize how hurtful it is, and it's self-destructive. You're talking about listening to the wrong types of music and the damage that does. That kind of joking, that kind of poor humor is also harmful.
Oh, very.
And it lends itself to other things. We talk about CP time, which really doesn't exist. Ain't no such thing. But we have this whole section of our lives where we demean ourselves. And we just finished our fall revival, and Dr. L.K. Domain made mention of the fact that we don't need other folk to talk about us. We talk about ourselves. We do the damage to ourselves. And so how do we overcome? What are your thoughts about how we overcome that?
That's a great question. Really don't have that answer, but if I had to just off the top of my head think about how can we overcome it, so much can be done through education. And when you say education, first thing people think about is, okay, going to school. But we all know that knowledge is power, and that once you have the knowledge, that's something that no one could take away from you. So it's about, I think, it's about having that right role model to teach from the garden stage, teach at a very young age. This is inappropriate. Don't do this. I think about what my parents taught me growing up, the lessons that they did. Like you said, sitting around the dinner table. We had to do that. My parents made it. We had to sit at the table. I remember my mom telling me, if you go on a date with a girl, here's how you eat your food. Here's how you cut your steak. Yeah. And then I got to college, and I met a guy who didn't know how to change a flat tire. Dad didn't show him, and what Daddy did have didn't show him. You know what I'm saying? And you think about, all these, like you say, all those things. How do we fix that? And the only thing I can think of to say is education. We have to educate the adults that we can to want to instill this in their kids. But more importantly, let's recognize the garden that we have. These kids in elementary school are the light of the world, and it's not just at school what they're teaching. We already know they put more money into prisons than they do into any community programs.
Or in the schools.
Or in the schools. Yes. Treatment makes way more. When we said this earlier in the podcast, treatment that's the golden goose. Right. Goose that lays the golden egg. Treatment. Right. Prevention, that's gonna cut my source of income off. Right. If I prevent this, if I cure the cold, you're not gonna go buy any more cold medicine, no more Alka-Seltzer Plus. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So now let me just help you treat it, so we can keep this cash flow going in. So what we have to do is find a way to really attack the problem at its earliest stages. These kids. Okay, yeah, this young parent who's coming here in the church, and she has this young child, and what is a good way to tell her, which I don't have this answer, but just to pose the question, hey, you might not want to let your child do such and such that we see you doing or whatever, or your child's kind of doing something a little inappropriate. Back when I was coming up, almost anybody could spank you, whether your mom was there looking or not.
That's absolutely true.
And that curved a lot. But like now, you can't even tell a person to wipe the kid's nose, or you might get cursed out or something. So it's like, how do you do that? How do you curb it? Don't have the answer, but what I do know is the platform that I feel comfortable, which is music. I'm going to hit these areas, elementary, because if in a song that they learn, or if in a song, because when I go to elementary schools, we do storytelling. I help them, those kids who can't play an instrument. Okay, well, you could sing, you could tell a story. Okay, guess what? There's a music called blues. Let's tell me something that makes you sad. And they'll say, oh, when it rains. Then we'll say something about raining and can't go outside. So now we've opened up them to another form of literacy here, and now you're storytelling, and now you're being expressive. So now I use those avenues to try to instill something else in these kids. We might talk about manners. We talk about how it's inappropriate for you to bully somebody and talk about somebody. And so now these things, when we do follow-ups, hopefully they'll stick, and then they'll go on to because what happens when you relate any idea to music, it sticks. That's why those powers that be take the top of the line music writers and producers, and they produce this beat that you can't, once you hear it, you can't help but start moving. You just kind of want to move. Now you're feeling good. The dopamine is being released. And now I say, I don't like your color. I'm going to stab you. And I repeat it over and over. They call it the hook. There's a song. I'm not going to say the song. I know we're about to close. I saved these lyrics. But the guy said, there's a famous DJ out who works with a lot of artists, also a famous artist. It's no secret. It's a Jay-Z song, and Beyonce is on the song, and DJ Khaled. All these are top-notch, top-of-the-line musicians. There's a song, there's a hook in a song that they all do together. The hook says, the po-po behind me can't stop me now. Po-po behind me ain't gonna stop. Got the top down, po-po behind me ain't gonna stop. So essentially, to these artists who I look up to, who are making all this money that I love to make one day, who, for the little girls who want to look like Beyonce, guys who want to have the money as Jay-Z, in this song that you're putting out, you're saying, materially, I'm driving in this car that I'm rocking with the top down, so that's how I'm rolling. Now, on top of that, I'm getting you to have a materialistic mind, like everything's about material. Then I'm saying, the police behind me, not gonna stop. And what is one of the main problems we're having in this community with police and black people today? Young black men getting shot up by police because of a misunderstanding, or you not complying. Right. And here it is, this song telling me, I'm not gonna stop. Not gonna stop. Yeah. And it's in the hook, which means it's repeated in between every verse. They say it about 5 or 6 times, then somebody says a verse, then it comes back again, got the top down, po-po behind me, not gonna stop. So now, if I'm out here and these other songs have taught me to be smoking marijuana or popping pills or I'm drinking, now that's already in my system, physically, that's in my system. So now I'm not in my right mind already. And now I'm driving and these people are behind me. You know, you take that message and that music and you take these mind-altering drugs and you put them together, and what do you have? Somebody that's about to get shot or that's about to go to jail.
Yeah.
That's what's about to happen. You know, you look at this guy that just killed this basketball player, this LSU basketball player. 2 families ruined, 2 lives essentially gone.
Yes.
I don't know that young man, but I can almost promise you some kind of way down the line, what he did came from rap music. He was getting when you look at it, he was getting the best of they were getting the best of him in the fight. And he pulls this thing, you know, and all these songs that talking about bust a cap in your head, you know, kill shot and all this kind of stuff, which specifically talks about when I shoot you, I'm shooting you in the head. This is shoot to kill. This is in songs. And what did this boy do when he pulled this gun out? Did he shoot that man in the leg or the foot or the arm or even the chest? No. Right to that guy's head.
Yeah.
And I can tell you it's a reaction that comes from something that's been instilled and repeated over and over. And this is the last thing I'm going to say. I was teaching middle school right here at a private school in Baton Rouge, and this little frail little kid on accident stepped on the shoes of one of the kind of other bigger African-American kids. Totally a mismatch. This kid was probably almost 6 feet and an extrovert or whatever. And here's this other little guy just trying to get his books together and hurry on to his next class. Barely stepped on this young man's shoe and maybe scuffed it or whatever. And I think they were Jordans or whatever. Do you know this boy started to wail on this little kid, like beat him up? And I mean, I wasn't far from him, but by the time I got to be able to break him up, he had easily gotten in 3 or 5 licks, punching this boy in the face because of what? Better not step on my shoes. Better not step on my shoes. And the song was out at that time. So in my closing, this is far overdue. Music, the real gateway drug, that directs us to the violence, the sex, the alcohol, the pills, all of that stuff, and that alters our mind that when it comes time to deal with trauma or split decision, whether it's, okay, I have this young lady here who I'm interested in, and I'm trying to convince her to have intercourse with me, and do I want to make her feel bad like they're saying in these songs? You know, and for young ladies as well who want acceptance, who want to be able to say they have a boyfriend, or want to say that they're beautiful or cute or whatever it is, who are out here dancing to try to get attention from a young man. And they're going off what these songs are saying. They're literally, this is what the song says. You know, and I hate to even say this on this broadcast because then I have daughters. When a young man says, ain't no fun if my friends don't have some, and a young lady sees that as acceptance, that is a tragedy.
Yes, sir.
That is a tragedy. But guess what?
It's out there.
It's happening.
Let me ask you this, and this is my final thing. I never close without asking about the future. I'm a native of Baton Rouge, love Baton Rouge. I spent 9 years in New Orleans, couldn't wait to get back home to Baton Rouge. You started by saying that you're from Dallas, from the Dallas area, yet you have chosen to make your home in Baton Rouge. You have children. I know 2 of your children very well. Do you want your children to choose Baton Rouge for their home? I know it's their choice, but I'm asking you as a father, do you want your children to choose Baton Rouge for their home, or do you have concerns about them choosing Baton Rouge for their home?
I would like for them to choose Baton Rouge as their home. I really would love for that to happen. However, I have concerns about them choosing Baton Rouge as their home because of the direction our city goes in. But then when you think about it in the big picture, I don't like the direction our country, that our country is going in. So who's to say that if they went somewhere else, it would be even better? The South, of course, has its history of what we have to deal with as far as racism and what just pretty much happens. But to answer the question, I would love for them to make their home in Baton Rouge and be able to travel abroad and bring back anything that can help their community. Be able to know that the world is bigger than their backyard. But Baton Rouge is a growing city. The reason I chose Baton Rouge outside of Louisiana is just what it is. You get down here and you eat this food and you meet the Louisiana women and you just get stuck. Before you know it, you got a family. Yeah. But when I came here to Southern back in '85, of course, nothing was like it was. There was Catfish Town that they had tried to do and I think failed.
It did.
Downtown was like a desert, no activity at all after 2 or 3 o'clock, I think, and there's barely any in the daytime. But it reminded me of what Dallas kind of looked like when I lived there in the 70s. I was born in Dallas, and my parents were living in a project at the time. They were trying to make their way. So when time came to go for school, the schools were horrible. So they sent me to New Roads to live with our grandmother to go to school, and then we went back to Dallas for the summers up until the 4th grade. Then they were like the Jeffersons. They moved into a neighborhood where we were the second black family on the street, 2-story house, the nice cars and all that kind of stuff. And we were better school, had better schools. And so, but Dallas at that time in the 70s, a lot of racism, areas were underdeveloped, and when I got to Baton Rouge decade later in '85 or so, Baton Rouge reminded me of Dallas from a child. So it had that part that grabbed onto me. And I watched Baton Rouge grow. And Baton Rouge has a lot more growing that it's doing. And for my kids and thinking about them, their survival and what they're going to do in life, you can make your way in Baton Rouge and make a very good living. There's a lot, like they say, we all can eat. You can have you have a foothold here, and you know the people, and the people know you. So I think this is I love the city. I love Baton Rouge. I think it's a great place for kids to grow up if we are moving toward getting ourselves together as a city.
Thank you for the time. I really appreciate you coming, and
I thank you.
I learned that music is math, which I had not thought of. I learned that there are only 2 tubas in an orchestra.
If you're lucky.
And it has been quite an enlightening conversation. The whole part about how music plays a role in our thinking and in our behavior, and how we need to rethink that with regard to our children. Thank you so much, Mr.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for viewing. Thank you for listening. We'll be back next time.